What is up, party people? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin because I do be reading. And today we're talking about my favorite books of 2021. So I initially filmed this video a few weeks ago, and upon going into the editing process, I realized that it looks terrible, very grainy, the lighting was bad. So here I am refilming this video. It is practically mid-January at this point. Hopefully I can edit it really quickly and get it up for you guys. Yeah, hot mess. What a way to start the new year. But I have some books. I put them in order. It's going to be my top 10. But really, what is an order? You know, what is a top 10 list? I love all of these books for different reasons. So while I may have put them in a particular order for this video, I love them all dearly. So here are my top 10. We have a range of genres. If you're interested in hearing more about these books, I have talked about them on my Bookstagram, on Book Talk. I did several posts talking about my favorite books by genre too, so just go ahead and check it out if you want some more bookish content from me. But let's get into it. Coming in at number 10 is Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko. This is a Ukrainian novel that was recently translated into English in 2019. Wow, I don't really know what I was expecting from this book, but it was certainly a wild experience. I've heard people describe it as a fucked up version of Harry Potter. I think that is a somewhat reasonable description, but I feel like it's a lot more than that. We are following Sasha, our protagonist. At the start of this book, she's 17 years old and she's on vacation with her mother when she encounters this very strange man. She keeps seeing him everywhere, and eventually he sets her on a series of very bizarre tasks. And once she finishes it, she throws up these gold coins and eventually uses those coins to get into the Institute of Special Technologies, a college, if you will. What Special Technologies is? That's a good question. But this book was wild from start to finish. I listened to the audiobook, which I recommend. But wow, I'm still thinking about the ending of this book. What does it all mean? I spent a lot of time going on Reddit and different blog posts and stuff trying to figure out what the ending actually mean. Did I understand anything that was going on in this book? Questionable. But I enjoyed every second of it, and it was such an interesting and bizarre reading experience that it had to make it to my top 10. So check this out if you're wanting something that's dark academia, magical, weird, a lot. Those are the words I'd use to describe this book. Coming in at number 9 is Winter Counts by David Heskell-Wambley-Wyden. Wow. As y'all know, I've been on a thriller journey this year. I've posted 2 thriller taste tests last year, and I have a couple more that I want to do, but thrillers aren't usually my genre, but I wanted to see what was going on. And among the thrillers that I've read this year, none of them were a 5-star. I've enjoyed many of them, but none of them quite reached 5 stars until I read Winter Counts. This is definitely more of a crime thriller, crime suspense mystery. It's slower than I would have expected from a thriller, but I think that's what made this book really work for me. Our protagonist is Virgil Wounded Horse, and he is kind of acting like the local enforcer on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in, I think it was North Dakota. I want to say it's one of the Dakotas. If you didn't know, obviously our justice system is whack, and that goes especially for the indigenous people here in the United States. So much of the crimes and bad things that are happening, especially on reservations, are just being left unresolved. So there's just, I could go into, let me not. But anyways, so Virgil acts as an enforcer, kind of helps out people where the justice system fails. He ends up being tasked with figuring out what's going on with this new potent drug that has been coming into the reservation. He ends up teaming up with his ex-girlfriend. Some of this stuff kind of hits close to home for him, and we're just following him as he both tries to figure out what's going on with this drugs and who's bringing them in and how to stop them, and also watching his like relationship to his tribe, to his reservation. Virgil is, I believe, mixed. He's half white and half indigenous. So we're just watching all of this stuff come together. It's just really good because you have like the more thrilling, action-packed stuff of this book with all of the like more nuanced, intimate looks at these characters and their culture and spirituality. And it was just so good. I absolutely loved it. If you haven't read it yet, you need to check it out. Coming in at number 8, the first of 3 nonfiction books on this list, which is quite surprising for me, I do have to say. We have Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. What can I say? I picked this one up during the summer. It was like my audiobook listen as I was commuting to my internship. And wow, this was so much. A lot of this was not new to me, but I think just how bad things were, I think particularly for children in the justice system. I just did not realize how bad it was, even though I knew, obviously, our justice system is whack. But I was thinking about this book a lot, in particular this semester, because I took this Access to Justice class, and it was all about the lack of access to justice for marginalized people, for poor people, for people of color, and a lot of this book also deals with similar things. So I was thinking about it a lot, and it's written in such a compelling way. It almost feels like a memoir because Bryan Stevenson kind of talks about his life and how all of his work has been impacting his life. I think he's such a strong narrative voice. And I think if you're someone who, one, is not really into nonfiction but wants to get into it, I think this is a great place to start. And two, if you're someone who wants to start learning more about our criminal justice system, this is also a great place to start. It was just really good. I cried a bunch just driving and crying, listening to this audiobook. It was a lot, but wow. Wow. Number 7, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Wow. I read a lot of romance in 2021, and while I enjoyed most of what I read, none of them have really been 5-star reads, except for this one. And I read this for my local book club, and we all adored it. It was so good. We are following 2 protagonists. We have Eva Mercy, who is an erotica writer, and we have Shane Hall. I feel like, is Shane West the dude from Camp Rock? Wasn't that Joe Jonas's character? Anyways, we have Shane Hall, who is more of a literary contemporary author. So they're both authors. They had a whirlwind romance 15 years ago, 7 Days in June. And it ended terribly. They haven't spoken to each other since, but they have low-key been writing to and about each other in their works all this time, and I'm just I love this. Anyways, they reconnect, and we're just following their lives. We get dual perspectives, but also dual timelines. So we're watching when they first met, that 7 Days in June, when they were younger, and then we're watching as they're reconnecting in the present day. I just love these characters. They had such great chemistry, and I loved how this book just tackled a bunch of different themes while also keeping that sense of levity. They're dealing with a lot. Eva has chronic migraines, and she had a very abusive and rocky upbringing. Same with Shane. He's suffering from alcoholism. I would definitely check out the trigger warnings for this. Honestly, all of the books that I'm going to talk about, but this one in particular, especially if you're thinking you're getting into a fun rom-com, there's definitely some darker themes in this book, but it handled it with such care and also balanced it out with some really funny moments. This book made me laugh out loud and also cry. So get a book that can do both, you know what I'm saying? I just love this. I'm excited to pick up Tia Williams' other book. I think it's called The Perfect Find or something like that. I have it up here. Yeah, The Perfect Find. But I just love this, and it was so good, and I honestly think I might reread this soon because I've just been thinking about it. Coming in at number 6, a book that truly surprised me, and that is Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. I mean, I really had not heard anything about this book. I'd seen maybe a couple of Bookstagram pictures floating around, but no one, at least that I follow, has talked about or read this book. And my friend decided to choose this for like my other, like my alpacas book club, my little book club that I have with just like a couple of my friends. And we were like, sure. I didn't know anything about it, but the cover is really interesting. And the premise is also really interesting. We have Lillian, our protagonist. She and her old friend Madison had like this very intense friendship when they were in high school, but they kind of fell apart. There was a scandal that happened and they hadn't seen each other in a really long time. They're all grown now. Madison is married to a senator and she has these 2 new stepkids. And there's something with these stepkids. They combust when they're feeling a lot of emotions. Like, they spontaneously combust. I'm not joking here, okay? They spontaneously combust. So Madison wants Lillian to come and essentially, like, nanny these kids over the summer as they try to figure out, like, what's going on here. Because her husband's a senator, obviously. I think he's running for something. Is it like a re-election campaign or something else? I think maybe he's like in the running to be like Secretary of State or something like that. So they're trying to get a handle on this situation, and they bring Lillian in, and just you watch her bond with these kids. And you know, this is a magical realism book, so like the whole spontaneous combustion thing does not get explained, and that's perfectly fine, because that was not the point of this story. But it was like surprisingly heartwarming and so funny at the same time. Like, I listened to the audio. You'll notice I listened to the audiobook for almost all of these books that I read. It was like a combo mix, but there are parts where I was laughing, and just like, it was so heartwarming. I had no idea what to expect out of this book. It just, if you just want some like found family type of like heartwarming feel-good story that's also funny, and is also kind of like dark humor a little bit. I don't know if dark humor is like the right word for it, but something similar to that. Definitely check this one out. It's relatively short. It's a quick read. And yeah, I mean, truly a surprise of 2021. All right, midway through, number 5. Kindred by Octavia Butler. My goal this year was to read more Octavia Butler, and I only read this one book this year. So I kind of flopped on that goal, but at least I read this and found a new favorite. And man, was this book so good. Like, Octavia Butler is truly that bitch. You know what I'm talking about? And I'm so glad she's getting all her flowers now, although it's kind of sad that she is no longer with us right now. But so many of her works, I just recently saw yesterday that this got picked up for a miniseries with FX, so I'm excited. This book, we're following Dana. She's a modern Black woman. And by modern, I mean it's the 70s, because that's when this book came out. But she gets sent back in time to antebellum South, which, as you can imagine, not good, not great for her. She goes back and she sees this white kid drowning, and she saves him. And she gets sent back to her own time period. And we just see her getting thrown back, and it's clear that her being sent back in time is tied to that kid that she saved. We watch him as he grows up and watch their relationship, and it's just such an interesting portrayal of the antebellum South and slavery. Obviously, the more and more she gets sent back, it's getting obviously very dangerous for her. There are times where she's staying there for like a very long time, but not a lot of time has passed in her time period. This is kind of hard to describe, but it's just, wow, what an interesting look at slavery, because it's, I think, you know, not that I agree with this position, but I feel like there are some people who think, like, why didn't, like, enslaved people, like, fight back? Which, first of all, they did, and they were. But I think this book really shows how the institution of slavery and, like, when you're continually oppressed, how that affects you and your, like, willpower. Because when Dana first goes back and she's first interacting with the slave owners and the other enslaved people, like, you can see how, like, feisty she is. Like, she really wants to fight back, but like as the book goes along and we see her staying there for longer and longer periods, and we see like her getting beaten and being beaten down by the system, like we see her just like being quiet and more reserved and not as willing to like fight back. And it's just it was a lot. This book was so much. This book was a lot. Obviously, massive content warnings for this book, but wow, I just thought this was really good. And yeah, I know people consider this like sci-fi because of the time traveling component, but I think this is more, I think if you change your expectations and think of this more as like magical realism, I think that'll be better. Because I know I've seen some reviews of people like complaining about the like lack of sci-fi elements in this book. Obviously, like the point of the story is not the time travel. It's like this look at slavery. So think of it more as magical realism. Adjust your expectations, and I think you'll enjoy this book a lot more. So, coming in at number 4 is The Death of Vivekoji by Akwaeke Emezi. This is a literary fiction novel, obviously, by the great, the baddest Akwaeke Emezi. Okay, definitely one of my new favorite authors that I've discovered in 2021, and there's actually another book coming up right after this. This is obviously about our titular Vivekoji. At the start of this book, we find that they are dead. This is not a spoiler, obviously. It's called The Death of Vivekoji, and it says that on the description on the back. This is basically just a book about Vivekoji through the points of view of everyone that knew them. We're looking at family, loss, identity, friendship, relationships. It's just... it was just so good. I don't know what to say. Pick it up. This is a very bad pitch for this book. I've talked about this quite a bit, I feel like, and I've posted about it on Instagram if you want to see a more comprehensive review. But I don't know what to say besides this was so good, and this just like hit, which is why it's on this list. So, number 3, and my second Akwaeke Emezi book, and that is Dear Sentherin, a Black Spirit memoir, which is Akwaeke Emezi's memoir. This one actually came out this year, and by this year I mean 2021. It is now 2022, and this is their memoir where they talk about their life and their relationships. And I think what's really interesting is that it's written in a way where it's like each chapter is like a letter to a different person in their lives. And so the reason why I like this one slightly more than The Death of Vivekoji is because this one just like hit me more emotionally. I was discovering things about myself, okay? It was so good. And it's just like Akwaeke Emezi is so talented and has such a gift for writing. I mean, truly, I don't know that I've read like such a great writer or read from such a great writer before. They just truly have such a talent. Like, you just are reading this and you're like, damn, this is not something you can learn. This is just something you're born with, low key. And that's that on that. Coming in at number 2, and the only book I don't have a physical copy of, I desperately need to get my hands on one, and that is Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia by Sabrina Strings. This is another nonfiction book, and it is basically chronicling the history of fat phobia and its ties to anti-blackness and anti-black bodies and racism. And this was such a dense book. It wasn't particularly long. I think it was under 300 pages, but it is so academically written. It took me a while to get through, and I did listen to this one on audio, which I think helped me get through it. But it is very dense, and I'd say the first third of this book is very like historical and stuff that I didn't necessarily care about per se. But I understand why it was added, and it like gave a lot more context to things that the author talked about later on in the book. I highly recommend this one. It completely changed my view on fat phobia and just like reframed my ideas on fat phobia and gave me, I feel like, better language. I kind of want to reread it again. It's been a while, but I highly recommend this one. I will say maybe check out the audiobook, especially if you are not a nonfiction reader, because it was very academic, and I think it was like published through a university, so makes sense. But yeah, it is the book like that I have like thought about so much. And yeah, I have not stopped thinking about it. I read it over the summer as well. It's been over 6 months now, and it's just here. It's right here in my mind, so check it out. And coming in at number 1. This one was actually more of a recent read. I read it in November, but that is Olga Dies Dreaming by Xochitl Gonzalez. Wow. What can I say about this book besides that it was amazing? We are following Olga. She is a Puerto Rican woman living in Brooklyn. She grew up in Brooklyn. Her family grew up in Brooklyn. And she is our primary protagonist, but we do have other points of view from her brother, Pedro, and some other folks who don't really matter to me besides those two. But yeah, she is a event planner. She mostly does event planning and wedding planning for the wealthy elite in New York City. Her brother is a congressman, and very interestingly, their parents were members of the Young Lords, which were this like leftist revolutionary group that were particularly concerned with fighting for Puerto Rico's independence from the United States. And so they grew up with a lot of these like revolutionary teachings. And when Olga was 13, her mother actually decided to leave the family and continue being this great revolutionary. So, and really we're just following Olga and her brother navigating, you know, their lives. I don't really know. It's like a pretty slow book. There isn't like a super main plot going on here, but we're just looking at how, you know, how they grew up and how that affects them now, especially now that they've kind of moved so far beyond like how they grew up. Because, you know, Olga is working primarily for the wealthy elite, and her brother is a congressman who is dealing with some other stuff that I don't want to spoil. And just, we see too throughout this, their mother is like sending them these letters, basically disapproving of everything that they're doing and trying to get them to like come back to the cause and all that stuff. And, you know, we're looking at motherhood because on one hand, I think it's like really cool and admirable that her mother decided to like get so deep into the cause, but on the other hand, she abandoned her children. So like there's that. And Olga's getting into a new relationship, and she's just like rediscovering things, and it's just so good. And we're just having like lots of conversations about colonization and being queer in the Latina community. It's just I don't know what to say. It was just so good. And I highly recommend the audiobook again. Guys, I'm doing a terrible job describing what this book is about, because really it's like, it's a contemporary novel. It's a literary novel. There's not like a lot of plot going on here, but it's just so good. There's so much good character work going on. You have to check this out. Also, this cover is just really cool. Just read it. You know what I'm saying? Just read it. Just read it. Just read it. And that is all I have for y'all today. I'm like losing my voice right now. But anyways, thank you for watching. Those were my top 10 books of 2021. Like I said, if you want to see some of the other books that I talked about by genre, you can check me out on TikTok and on Instagram. I'll have those linked down below. And yeah, Happy New Year. I'll see y'all in the next video.